Hello, everyone. This is the Rise with Rose show. And with me, I have Katlynn Smith. She is a vitality coach, and she is someone that's crossed my path only a couple months ago, but I felt super connected to her. And I'm extremely grateful that she is here today and we get to just talk about whatever comes up. We kind of already know where we're heading, but we'll let it unfold naturally. So, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. Like I was saying to you earlier, I'm very open right now. I feel like all my channels are open. I just finished crying. You and I were both at an event called The New Human on the weekend, and we were all sharing our takeaways. I'm like, nothing has come to me yet, but it will, because that's just how I work. I usually take a few days for the energy to move and integration to happen.
Mm.
And yeah, I was in the sauna doing my thing, having my meditation, and I was like, "Whew, there it is," and crying, and yeah.
Well, and it's so powerful that event, which actually I was in high avoidance of. Like my whole being was like, because you were like, come. And I was like, oh, I don't really want to come. And then our friend group, it was like, oh, I'm going and I'm going. And I was like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm going to miss out on something really powerful if I don't go to this thing. And then I ended up going and had such like cathartic releases during it. There was like one point when we saw that person go through that really intense like healing in front of us. I just like cried nonstop for like however long it was, like an hour or whatever. Maybe it wasn't quite that long, but my eyes, like it was like involuntary. Like my body was just like releasing all this emotion, and to see someone so vulnerable and in a way that they like let everyone else into that was so powerful for me. And I left there so, I don't know if the word is energized, but I just felt like you said, like open. I just felt open, and I was like, oh, this is actually where we're meant to head as a society. We're meant to be more communally based. We're meant to be vulnerable and feel safe. And a lot of my resistance is, I think that when I am in larger groups, is I don't feel safe. There's too much energy. There's too many people. I am open. I can pick up things. But that was probably one of the first spaces where after the first initial half hour, felt like, oh, this is so completely safe.
Home. That's, yeah, to share my experience. I went to the New Human, so that was the second one this past weekend, but my first one I went in June, and I had just gone through something really hard with my son, Cooper, who got very, very sick. And I had been healing from that, and just all of my past stuff that I've been healing, and the New Human crossed my path, and I was open to it because I was already in that holistic space, and the healing of your trauma. And so that's what brought me to the room. But what happened to me in June was, for the first time, I felt like I was around people that I was in full resonance with.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back at my life, I've always felt like I was putting in more effort with friends or even family than I was receiving. Like, when you're just like, don't you want to hang out? Like, let's make plans. And I never felt like that was being received. And when I was at the New Human, I was like, I could just be completely myself and loved for it. I felt that love and just the unconditional support that room had. And so when I left that space, my whole mindset around friendship and soul family changed, and it allowed me to see what was possible with true community, like a supportive, like a community that's not competitive, and just all those things that our souls want. And so it really became my mission after that, was to find my people in Salmon Arm. And it's not like I went out with a checklist, but because my mind shifted, I was open to that possibility. And it wasn't that long after where I started to meet you and so many other people. And I'm like, wow, I've really cultivated this community that feels like home. And when I was sitting in the New Human on Saturday, I was just like, how did I get to be in this room of 200 people that feel like me, when I didn't know a single person that felt like this before?
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized that this is my life now. And the first time I went there, I felt almost like not out of place, because it felt like home, but I felt kind of small, like maybe I didn't deserve to be there as much as other people. But the second time I was like, this is my family. These are my people. And I knew half the room, and I got to go with all of you guys. There was like a group of 8 or 7 of us that went together. And I just realized it all started with a mindset shift, and that can really happen with anything in your life.
Yeah. And that's so powerful. And I feel like this is kind of just the beginning, that we're going to have these internal revelations that will physically manifest as being able to have community come in. Whereas before, say even a year or two prior, you might not have been in a healed enough state to allow people in to see the real true you, right?
Mm-hmm. And people can feel that, right? They can feel your frequency. And that's why if you're a part of a friend group and you feel like, why are they never calling me? You have to ask yourself, are you being your authentic self? Because whether the person consciously knows it or subconsciously knows it, frequency doesn't lie. You can feel that. And you might not know why you're not calling that person, but it's a universal law. Like, we just attract what we are. And so as you grow and you come into your authenticity, you start to attract all the resources you need to be your best self. So that's something I'm really passionate about, is the power of community and how that can help heal. And my journey really started with health. It's all rooted in health. So should I just dive into it?
Yeah, go for it. I love it.
Yeah. So I didn't realize the connection between community and health that came. Is that your bearded dragon?
Yeah, he's walking around. He's fine.
That came later on, but how it all started for me was when I was 15 years old. I found out that my dad might not be my biological dad. So I was told kind of what had happened. My mom was married to someone else, and she had an affair with my father that raised me and got pregnant, and never really knew who the father was, but my dad stepped up and raised me. And I'm so thankful for that. But they never told me until I was 15 years old, when my sister was trying to have a sleepover with her ex-husband's daughter, who it could very well potentially be my half sister. And it all came up because of that. And so when I found out when I was 15 years old, I was devastated, but also at the same time I knew. And I recently talked to a quantum healer trying to work through this trauma that just always seems to be there, even when I think that I've healed through it. And she's like, okay, yeah, but did you know? Did you know when they told you? I was like, I wasn't surprised. I was devastated, but yeah, I knew. And she's like, yeah, because you took that as your opportunity to be raised through a different family. Like, you share your genetics. And so she had affirmed that, my biology came from my mom's first husband, but that I wanted to be raised in this family to learn the lessons that I needed for this lifetime. And when I was 3 years old, I had been bit by a tick, which I only found out a couple of years ago. But it all makes sense, because when I was 15 and I experienced this trauma, and my family wasn't in a place to help me through it. They hadn't healed their own pain and shame around it. So it was still something that they really just didn't want to talk about. So I was told this news, and then I wasn't really allowed to talk about it. So, as hopefully a lot of the people listening already know this, if not, well, reach out to me. I will help you on this journey. But any trauma or any emotion that you suppress, it causes an unbalance in the body, and it causes disease. And so this to me at the time, was a huge trauma. I had so many questions. I shoved it down, and then lo and behold, a couple months later, started getting very sick. And this is where I became what my mom called like the sickly child, that they could never understand what was going on. I became anemic. My periods were so heavy. I have 3 children, and I can now attest that the pain that I had when I was getting my period was like being 6 centimeters along in labor. It was so horrific. I'd be healed over grabbing the couch, crying with cramps. And so there was that. I was exhausted, and I started getting a lot of joint pain. And my health just started to change. You can see it on my face and everything when I was as I was around that age, and we just didn't know why. Like I was just getting, BS, like diagnoses. You're anemic. I don't even know. Just that kind of stuff. Oh, go on birth control, like the Band-Aids, right? Never getting to the
Mhm.
root cause. And I didn't know better, and my family didn't know better at the time. And I had always had this, when you're asked in grade 12 or even in grade 11, really when it started, like pick your career path. I just knew I wanted to be in the health air, like the health, can't think of the word,
Sector.
sector. Yeah,
Yep.
because I knew I was a healer. Like my soul knew, like I wanted to heal, but I hadn't been exposed to anything else. And so I was like, I'll be a nurse. Like my mom's a nurse, and that was the example I had. And I knew that there were so many different avenues in nursing. I didn't know exactly how, but I really knew that I wanted to help people, like from a young age. Like I want to help people and I want to be a mom. And so I went in to be a nurse, and I actually got pregnant with my son, who's now 12, in my very last year of nursing school. So I graduated nursing school at like 6 months pregnant. And then I worked for 2 months, 3 months, and then I had him. And it was when I went back nursing after having him that my symptoms that I had been living with, like nothing got better. I was still anemic. I was still tired. I still had the joint pain, but I could live through it. I could, do this normal life of working and going to school. But once I had a child and I was working, things started to really amp up. I just couldn't really do it anymore. And I ignored, and had another baby. And then when I went back to school or back to work after having my second child, I was at the point where I would go to work, and you and I have a similar story there. I would go to work and that's all I could do. Like I would collapse on the bed. I couldn't feed myself. Like I would have popcorn for dinner because I couldn't make dinner. Like I was just in so much pain. I was taking Tylenol number ones for the neck and shoulder pain because I couldn't get through work without them. I would sleep almost all weekend. Like my kids would just come in bed and cuddle with me, and that would be our quality time. It was so bad. And I really didn't tell anyone. The only one that really knew was my husband. I'd call in sick like at least once every 2 weeks because I wasn't sleeping. I was so, so tired, like a level of tired that you could never even, like, unless you've been through it, you don't know. Like I actually felt pretty awesome after having babies, like because I was like I could somehow sleep when I was breastfeeding. I think the hormonal release really helped me sleep. So when people say they were tired as a newborn when they have a newborn, I'm like, oh, that I actually feel better. So that's how tired I was.
Oh.
And I would call in sick and I'd get the side eyes from my coworkers, and my boss wouldn't be very happy. And then the guilt and just all this. And it was finally at about age 28, I think I learned about an anti-inflammatory diet. And that was really the first holistic step I took. And this had profound, like immediate results for me. I lost 50 pounds in a few months. My pain went away. I started sleeping. I'm like, wow, why did no one tell me how important diet is?
Mm-hmm.
And this is just where I was in my journey. I thought everything had to do with diet. And diet is important. And that's still important in my life now. But my body shifted so quickly. And so then I started to question what I was doing as a nurse. Like, how come we never learned about diet in nursing school? Like, what? Like, I did have a nutrition class, but we didn't learn anything like what I had learned. Like, once I started learning about anti-inflammatory diet, I really like researched and got really into it. And that was the first thing for me. And I started dabbling in entrepreneurship, and I started to feel more a sense of authenticity and empowerment at the same time as I was adopting this lifestyle. And now when I peel the layers back, I realized that I stopped being my authentic self right around about age 15, when I was so scared of being not accepted by my family because I might not share biology. I started not speaking my truth, and that really bled into my life even when I became a mom, I was pretty young. I was 23. I have to be the perfect mom. I have to do everything. And I was still really seeking that approval of my parents. Like, I just want to be loved. Like, I was frozen in time at that scared 15-year-old that just wanted to be told, like, look, whether or not you share biology, I love you unconditionally. And maybe my parents said that to me, but I didn't take it in. And so here I am, very, very sick, have 2 kids, finally start getting things under control with diet. And as things started to shift in my life, the diet wasn't working anymore. And I was like, what the heck? And I wanted, still very body focused at that time, I decided to study functional nutrition, thinking, yeah, maybe I'll have a business with this, but I really wanted my health. Because if you've ever lost your health and been in chronic pain, if you get that back, you are determined not to lose it, because you have nothing if you don't have your health. And I really struggle when I see, and I have to let this go, but when I see people mistreating their body, when, drinking every weekend, I'm like, how can they do that? Do they not know what they'll feel like if they give that up? Mm-hmm. And then I had to take a couple steps back and be like, Katlynn, those people have never lost their health. If you lose something and have to get it back, you will do everything you can to protect that. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what happened to me. And so as my health was slipping back, it was after a car accident and some changes with the business that I was doing. I started to get unhealthy, even though I was eating the same way. And I didn't understand what was going on. So I went to study more about functional nutrition, and I still wasn't getting anywhere anyway, just because I was eating a certain way, because I wasn't being my authentic self. And then let's just fast forward. So I was taking functional nutrition in 2019. And then 2020, we all know what happened. I decided to have my 3rd baby. And I am so glad that my sweet Adeline, my 3rd baby, is here. But I'll be really honest. I knew that motherhood comes pretty naturally to me, especially with that baby stage. Like, I just love babies. I was a maternity nurse. Like, it's easy to me. And when I had kind of taken a step back from nursing because it wasn't feeling in alignment, I felt like a loss of sense of purpose. And it was part of the reason that I decided I wanted to have another baby. Mm-hmm. There was something in my heart that always wanted another child. I couldn't let that go. But if I'm being really honest, I felt a sense of unworthiness. And I decided if I just have another baby, I'll feel worthy again, which is insane. But I know I'm not the only one who's done that before. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, she was meant to be here. I love this sweet, sweet girl. But she is the epitome of me when I'm in my full expression. Like, that girl, like, she's just her. She's a very strong empath, but she's also not afraid to be the center of attention. She's a Leo. She's a Leo sun and a Leo moon. And then I'm the Leo rising. So we're like this little triangle of Leo. And anyways, I got pregnant 2020. I was pregnant with her, very, very sick. I was between nursing jobs and I had intentions to go back. But then COVID hit, and all of a sudden I was homeschooling my 2 older children, throwing up every single day, being pregnant. And as the world was unfolding, started to have my awakening while I was pregnant with Adeline. And that was just really massive in how I saw the world. And it helped me become my authentic self again, standing up for what I believed in and starting to let go of the things that no longer served me. And I had a lot of lessons that happened in between there. My son, like I had mentioned, got very, very sick, and I had to get myself out of fight or flight, work with a mindset coach. But as I healed from past trauma and started to look at things and implemented the diet and became, focusing on my authentic self and boundaries and showing up how I wanted to without censorship, I started to heal again. And then I realized this recipe of healing the mind and the gut, being authentic. And I forgot the last one, being authentic, healing the mind and the gut, working through trauma, and just being really accountable for your life. And so, yeah, my gift has been through my struggle. And I didn't mention, so a couple of years ago, I finally found out I had Lyme disease. And then when I, brought that up to my parents, they told me, oh yeah, you were bit by a tick when you were 3 years old. And then learning more about Lyme disease, I realized that a lot of people are infected with Lyme disease, but it can be dormant your entire life. And it's usually emotional or physical trauma that pulls it out of dormancy. And looking back and the timing of when my symptoms started when I was 15, that it really was the suppression of finding out about my dad and not being able to work through that really started bringing it out of dormancy. And in order for me to heal myself, I had to take care of my body on a physical level, the diet and all that. But truly, I had to work through the trauma and start being myself again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I've heard your story a couple of times, but I love it. And I love it in the sense of it did give you the experience to be able to hold space for others, which is, why I went through what I went through. You can't just come out, untouched by everything and expect people are going to believe you when you're like, I know what you're struggling, what it feels like to struggle. Like, you need to be that authentic person sitting there, having gone through it, but able to fast track people now through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, your experience is now going to quantum leap so people don't have to struggle. You're going to fill in the blanks where you had to like go and fill your own blanks in, trying to figure out like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Where you can take someone and you can just say, okay, based on my experience, if we do this, this, and this, you're going to leap forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that I would have no passion for this if I didn't have my own story. Mm-hmm. I would still think that traditional medicine Western medicine was the answer. Mm-hmm. And what's really coming to light for me now is the way that we're taught, in North America to treat illness is we're robbing ourselves of the gift, because when you take a symptom and you put a Band-Aid on it, you're just delaying the lesson that mm-hmm. needs to come up. You're suppressing the symptom, but the symptom is there to help you learn something about yourself. There's always a connection to something that you're ignoring or something that you're not feeling. And for me, I was suppressing my full expression of myself. At 15, I decided that I wasn't going to be myself. I didn't consciously make that decision, but I was scared. And then I started living life for others. And it wasn't until I learned, hey, you need to be you, that my body started to heal. Mm-hmm. And I would see that like everyone, it looks differently physically for everyone. But for me, and maybe this is TMI, but I'll do a lot of my healing through releasing toxins through my poop. Like, we all heal that way, but the minute I like speak my truth, I usually go like poop 3 times that day. Like, after it's mm-hmm. like, oh, okay, we're going to let go of that. Cause Lyme disease is a lot of, it affects the detox pathways. So as that's healing, it's like, okay, we're going to let go of some of this, and it manifests physically. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. It's funny because I had that visualization this morning when I was having my bowel movement, where I was like, okay, what is it I'm actually releasing right now? Because you can tie emotions and situations and experiences energetically to the physical releasing, whether it's through a bowel movement or the releasing of toning with the voice. I also did scream in the car this morning too, when I dropped only 2 of my 3 kids off this morning. And I was like, it was supposed to be all 3, like, and it was like this resistance of like, why is this happening to me? And for me, my kids are the only things that really can trigger me. And in that moment, I felt so much anger. And then I came home and had that release. And I was like, oh, okay. So actually I needed to have something that triggered the anger to be able to physically let go of what's wanting to come up. Because if we don't have, instances of triggers or things like that, then we stay stagnant, right? Then our stuff just sits there and we don't actually move, and we can't really evolve if we're not shifting and changing. And if we're not creating space for other frequencies to come in.
Exactly. And so what I hear from that is that everything is happening for us, not to us. And, I haven't always embraced that. So now I feel like I have a pretty good handle on my health. It still does bear its ugly head when I'm not being honest with myself or I'm avoiding something. But what I'm working through now, and you and I have had lots of conversations about this, is finances. And I've been, angry the last couple of weeks. Like, why am I still going through this loop where we're always struggling? And I was listening to an interview and it was talking about how I just explained how when you lose your health, how much gratitude you have for it when you start to get it back. And I was just meditating and I was asking universe, like, why am I going through this again? And I got clear as day whisper, because you have to lose it to appreciate it, just like your health. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I get it. And it's not that I haven't appreciated money, but I've been avoidant. And I really realized the tie between this avoidance of wanting to really deal with everything that happened to me when I was 15 and really speaking my truth with my family, the connection it has to my avoidance of wanting to look at money, because money has always been a really big thing in my family. It was always like we never had enough, or my dad always had to work to make more money. And I felt like it was either money or time with him. And I never felt like I got the time with him. And I know that he always did what he felt was best for our family. And I appreciate how hard he worked. But that little girl that's still inside of me feels like, hey, when you have lots of money, that means that you're not loving your family. And I think that that's been there for me as a parent, that belief, and it's time to let it go. And in the sauna, it was just like, you need to stop avoiding. And the minute I decided to take control of my finances and be like, okay, this is like what we need to do. This is what's really going on. Let's not avoid, because we wouldn't live a crazy lifestyle, but we wouldn't look and we'd be like, why are we not making ends meet? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Yep. But the same thing's going on with my family. Like I'm a very strong empath. There's quizzes, I'm the highest. Like, I feel everything. And I was always told, stop being so sensitive when I would try to bring up the stuff that I could feel. And it was always with love. It was always like, can we talk about this so that I can feel a stronger connection between us? And as in my adult years, there's been a lot of avoiding. And it's like, okay, now that you're not going to avoid your finances, you're not going to avoid these things that need to be said too in your life. And there's a connection, and that's the connection for me. But I would be surprised to find anyone that doesn't have some sort of other energetic, emotional connection with money, because it's just the way we've raised, right? The money stories. It's not about the money. It's about what beliefs are you connecting to money. And for me, it's like, if I have money, then I'm sacrificing my love for myself and the people around me. And that's not true.
And that's super interesting, because I just re-listened to this book. I think it's called Millionaire Mind, and it just popped up on my thing. And I was like, I need to re-listen to this. And he talks about the programming of your parents, and then how they represented money to you, and then how you viewed that experience. And so I have something very similar, where my mom worked all the time and money was prioritized. Like, we need to make money. We need to make money. And that got prioritized past the, I need to connect with my children on like a one-to-one basis, or in really deep connections, because, she was a single mom. So it wasn't her fault. It was just this, me as a child being like, I don't love money because it's taking me away from my connection from my mom. I don't get my mom because she has to go and work all the time. And for me, it is that same, like, okay, I don't want to look at it. I want to avoid it. And I personally have been avoiding something these last few months. And I think it was like 2 days ago, after listening to that book, I'm like, you know what? I need to look at this. And I just started printing off the receipts and doing all the things and organizing and getting it all ready for my accountant, being like, I need to hand this in. It's the same with my taxes every year. I'm like, I don't want to do it. And so then I wait till the very last moment. And then it's this, like, I didn't really show up for myself, right? I didn't show up for myself. Like, I could have done them months prior and probably got a check then and like had money and all this stuff. But instead I'm like, I don't want to look at it. And it becomes that cyclical cycle of I'm not worthy of the money, or money is painful to me, so I don't want to look at it. But when we start to unprogram from that, then we can know that we are worthy of it, and that our conditioning and our experiences in our past do not determine our experiences in the future if we do that healing and we bring that awareness to it.
Yeah, 100%. Anytime you have resistance, that's an invitation to look, why am I feeling resistant in doing my taxes? Why am I resistant in combing through my visa statement? Like, that was me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just didn't want to look, because I didn't want to be accountable. I didn't want to feel the pain or the unworthiness. And then, yeah, when you're ready, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is no big deal. You see it for what it is. Like, it's not a big deal. It's a piece of paper. What is it going to, the money is already spent. Like, why are you afraid to look? Why are you afraid to look at this? And something that has really shifted my mindset is that belief that we pick our bodies and our ancestry, before we come into this world. Like, our soul's like, okay, that I like that girl's human design. I like that she's going to get Lyme disease because my gift here in my gene keys says healer, leader, and fire starter. Like, that's why I'm here. So does it not make so much sense to come into a family through affair where I have to transcend this pain? I get Lyme disease to start to appreciate my health. I have to teach my family that it's okay to let go of shame, this pattern of shame that's been carried through my lineage, and have this period where I completely let go of who I am, to have to come back to my authenticity. Like, if I wanted to be a healer, I needed to go through the Lyme disease. If I wanted to be a fire starter, I needed to feel what it was like to not be in your gift and how painful that is, to have this fuel to help me show others the way. And it's all happening for us. If I want to be wealthy, I need to feel like what it's like to not have money, because I mean, maybe that's a story I'm telling myself, but I do feel like I get my motivation from losing something and having to get it back and learning the lesson. So it's all happening for a reason. But the thing is, many people will get stuck in the victim story forever and never get the lesson. And then, as you and I know, well, then you're just going to repeat it in your next lifetime. You might as well listen.
Yeah. And that's also, the other thing as well is a lot of us are not only, so a lot of us healers, we're not only taking on, our own personal stuff, but we're also taking on collective stuff and communal stuff, and like having to heal that on a larger scale. So people like you and I, we're not just here for our own personal filling our bank accounts. When people like you and I get money, or people that are really in alignment with like new earth templates and knowings, they're doing it for the community. It's like your wealth goes out into the community. What you can build radiates into the community. That's why our paths have been so kind of hard up till now, because I often think, 5 years ago, if the universe would have just gifted me with a whole wad of cash, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. It would have never pushed me to be aware of the struggle of the community. I wouldn't have seen it because I wouldn't have been in it. I would have been above it, and I wouldn't understand that the need for the creation of so many of the programs and things that you and I want to pull out or bring out of us into community.
That's fueled your purpose.
Yeah, we don't have the context until we move through it. And now I feel like with more conviction, we will take that wealth and that abundance, and we distribute it. I often think of like Robin Hood, you distribute it to the poor, but it's not just like wealth. It's not that we're giving people money. It's that we're teaching people how to authentically be themselves, to be able to receive from the universe. But we have to like unlock that Rubik's Cube within ourselves first.
Yeah. We have to go through the fire.
Right.
And it's not always fun.
Not always easy, but for me, it's actually becoming more exciting. Like that this is life, that it's not just the 9 to 5 grind and then you like die one day. It's like, no, like there are lessons and you learn and you unlock and then you reach new achievements and then you go above and beyond. And then there's a new phase and stage and new people come in and new experiences unfold. It becomes really magical when you start releasing from the paradigms of those old constructs that are kind of keeping you really boxed in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Being able to follow your intuition instead of the conditioning that you've been taught has been really huge for me. Like we moved to Salmon Arm based on a feeling, and that was probably the biggest risk we've ever, and when I say we, my husband and I, the biggest risk we've ever taken, and we didn't really understand why we were doing it. And now it's so obvious. It was to meet all you guys, to have this experience. I really believe that, I mean, you can go and heal on your own, but it's a lot easier when you have support. And I needed to find this community. I needed to have this support to be able to endure letting go of the old paradigms, because it hurts. Like, and there'll be a lot of people that you lose on that path that aren't going to resonate with you, or maybe they're going to actually look at you as bad, because you do, when you shine your light, you start to illuminate the darkness in other people. And that is either an invitation for them to look at it and heal, or a resistance, and they won't want to be around you anymore because they're not ready. And that is okay. Everyone is ready on their own terms. And I've really had to learn to detach as much as I can. I mean, I'm a strong empath, but from the judgments of others, and realize it's not a reflection on me. But yeah, it does hurt when someone that you've always been close to or has always been in your life doesn't see you in the way you see yourself. You might think that you are doing really powerful, impactful things, and they might think that you're selfish. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And that 2023 was a lesson of that for me, that I realized that me standing in my authenticity and my bigger vision of where I'm going triggered a lot of people, and I became a villain or an enemy in their story. But I realized like that is their story. That is their story. And if I let that influence me, then now I'm in their story. But my story is that I'm here to help people. And if people don't want to receive that, or if it triggers them, then let them go play out those dynamics, outside of me. And it's not that I ever push people away. I have a very strong policy within me that I will never burn the bridge from my end. I will never light a bridge between you and I on fire. I have seen many people light their sides on fire, and I'm like, all right, it's going to take a while to rebuild that up. But like when you're ready, there's half a bridge here for you. So it's up to you to build that bridge. It's not up to me to build it for us completely. You may not get it in this lifetime. You may never feel compelled to ever build it and want to come and see me again or be near me. And that's okay. I don't take it personally, because your soul's on a journey and your self-growth isn't my journey, and it's not my responsibility. My journey is my responsibility, and that's why I put it at the forefront of my experience. And when I'm authentically being me, if I know it triggers you, then that is like literally your soul being like, we need to heal this. It's not my soul being like, I need to heal that for you, or let me play that dynamic for you. It's like, go heal your trauma, and then if we're a match, we'll come back together. And if not, doesn't mean I don't love you from that soul level. It just means we're not a match.
And that's unconditional love for yourself and for them, to show up authentically and feel safe enough to be like, look, this is me. I'm not going to change myself to make you feel comfortable, but I am going to love and keep my side of the bridge open for you no matter what. Even if you are saying that you don't agree with me, or you don't like me, or you think I'm a danger, or whatever it is, be like, hey, I know that you're not trying to hurt me. This is just your belief. This is where you're at, or your level of ability to look at your trauma right now. This bridge is here for you, but I'm also not going to change myself. I'm not going to come out of integrity. but I'm still going to love you. And when you're ready to reconcile or accept me for who I am, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
We're all on a journey.
Yeah. And which is really interesting because you saying, you know, once you're willing to reconcile, it's like that person needs to go and literally like forgive themselves and come to a place of non-judgment within themselves and come into all of these awarenesses and these healings to be able to then look at you without judgment, without those things. That really is like the journey of the awakening, as you learn that you are everything. And when you push people away, or you say that thing, that person is dangerous, or this person, you know, is an awful person, you're pushing away aspects of self. You are pushing away the parts of you that you don't want to look at, because the universe will always attract the experiences into you that you are internally. So you are magnetizing towards it, and it's bringing it to you. So when someone says like your beliefs are dangerous to the safety of me and they're pushing you away, it's because the universe wants you to look at your beliefs, because the beliefs that you have, believe it or not, are probably dangerous to you and your health. So like you are physically manifesting for them what they need to see internally. People don't have that kind of awareness. So they just believe in the 3D world, that there's nothing deeper. It doesn't go anything beyond that. And that's where the Great Awakening comes in, because people will start to make those connections of like, no, there are deeper layers to what we are seeing and what we are experiencing in this moment with these people.
Totally. I remember hearing once that nobody goes into an argument thinking they're wrong. I'm not going to argue my case because I think it's wrong. You both think you're right. And the only one that loses an argument is the person that isn't willing to see the other side and learn from it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it. Like, you're always going to think you're right, because mm-hmm. otherwise you wouldn't be in conflict. But why not open your mind to be like, okay, why do you think that way? Like, can we accept each other even when we have a different scene of opinions, and maybe be open to the other side of the argument and see what's going on there? Where did that thought process, like, how did you come up with that thought process? And I mean, at the end of the day, you're just going to learn more about the other person too. And that's how we strengthen our connections.
Yeah. You know, I really realized this through my own experience this past year, is when someone is trying to prove their theory or their story or whatever it is, and they're really fighting for it. They're like really trying to create and paint a picture of like, believe this narrative that I hold so dear to me, or I'm actually gripping so tightly, like if I let it go, my whole reality will crash. Yeah. But the people that are really doing their healing, they don't feel the need to change you. They don't feel that need to paint their picture so loud and fierce. They're just like living the example, and they're like, okay, that is your truth. Like, that is your truth. And it doesn't mean I love you less, but I am convicted in where I'm at. And I'm not going to try to persuade you or change you. And that's when you know you've made real progress, when you're just like, okay, that is where that person is at, but I'm not going to go out of my way to try and shift who they are or where they're at in this moment. It's pretty powerful when you have that realization.
100%. And then to turn it back on the realization of yourself too, mm-hmm. right? Like, our beliefs right now are just a reflection of where we are in our journey. Like, let's rewind 10 years back for me. I fully 100% with full faith believed in the Western medical system. And then I believed that nutrition was the answer. And then I started to believe that mindset, and then spirituality. And what I believe today might change tomorrow if the right information crosses my path. And it's when we get so fixated and attached to like what we have right here and right now, whether it's a theory on something or the house we live in, that we rob ourselves of that growth. Mm. Because what if we're okay embracing that, oh my gosh, I was wrong. Mm. But then I can just learn something new, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's not that you were wrong. It's just that's where you were at and the level of awareness that you had capacity for. You know, if someone's starting at the very beginning of their journey, isn't going to necessarily open up to the highest levels of spirituality. It's just too big of a jump. They need baby steps. And that's why I love what you do, because you take them into the body, into the physical, which they can't deny. When they have physical symptoms, they're like, there is something going on. And then you can help them slowly bridge into more of those spiritual aspects once you know that they're ready for it.
Yeah, it's really just taking people through an accelerated journey, like my accelerated journey. Like you don't need to do it over 15 years. Maybe you can do it over 5 weeks. I don't know. I don't know. Like,
You can do that. Yes. Yeah.
You just have to embrace the journey. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I love
the journey.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we're gonna end there if you're okay with that. But I do want you just to touch on anything that you have coming up, any offerings that are landing, and where people can find you as well.
Yes. So Instagram and Facebook, do you link those in the
I can, yeah.
Yeah, Katlynn Patricia on Instagram, Katlynn Smith on Facebook. I also have a Facebook community page that I just started. It's called the Awaken the Fire Community. That is my business name, Awaken the Fire. I currently do one-on-one appointments for people. So either somatic releasing, I really combined everything. I meet someone where they're at. I also can help provide sovereign medical advice. So it's just guidance. But if you're like, hey, I want to go on this pill, but I want to know how it's going to affect my body, I can help you look at all the things so you really feel empowered to make an informed decision for yourself. Right now, I'm putting so much of my energy into creating a program. It doesn't have a name yet, but it's really going to harness the power of the brain gut connection. So how mindset and how the food and the things that we put into our body affect each other. It's really a two-way highway. You cannot affect one without affecting the other. And then we're going to go into the spirituality piece too. So body on a health on a body level, a mindset level, and a spirituality level. And it's going to be really designed for someone who's really busy. A lot of my clients are like working moms that are like, I can't get on an hour call every day, or they maybe have 10 minutes to spare. So educational videos, and then a little bit of an in-person component too. So that's being developed. I also have a podcast called Awaken the Fire. So go ahead and check that out. And the podcast is really a vehicle for me to share my journey and the things I've learned. Everyone's like, what is it? I'm like, well, it's holistic health, it's awakening, it's spirituality. It's whatever the lesson that I'm going through in that moment is.
Yeah.
And then other like-minded people like yourself, who I get to be so like, I'm just so grateful that I get to have conversations with and share it with the world. So.
Me too. And I'm so glad that we met. And like, I believe we're just at the beginning. We are just at the beginning. We have no idea what's really going to unfold. And 2024 looks big and promising for people that are willing to become authentic. So I have no doubt that you are going to be busy, and the people are going to be like, where do I start? And I always say, yeah, start with the body, start with that connection, learn how to listen to the body. Then you'll be able to learn to listen to your intuition. It goes on and on and on. So it's powerful. I'm going to leave you there, and I'm going to say goodbye to everyone else. And remember that you can only perceive that which you are. So raise your vibes. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.